So do yourself a favour, check out the Carlisle Cult Cinema Club, and don't forget not just to rate it, but also to subscribe on YouTube or Facebook.
My name is Lil Silver. I bet you think you know all about vampires. Believe me, you know fuck all.
It's time for you to embrace the bigger picture or die.
I told you, you knew fuck all about vampires.
Welcome to the Carlisle Cult Cinema Club presents Jake West with 315 IMDb credits to his name, 98 as an editor, 95 as a director, 64 as a cinematographer, 14 as self-talking head, etc. documentaries, 12 as a producer, 10 as a writer, 22 miscellaneous, including second unit director and editor. So please welcome to the show Jake West, who's an absolute legend, and it's fantastic to finally have you on the show.
Well, thank you, Paul. It's a real pleasure to join you on the Carl Club. Finally, because we've been talking about this for a long time. So I'm glad we finally got to do it, and it's a pleasure to be with you today. Thank you.
Well, it's an absolute honour because, as I say, we have talked about it for a while, and it's just been you've been busy doing bits and bobs, so we've got it sorted, and you're here. And I'm just going to take a little trip through memory lane of your career.
Let's hit back down memory lane and see what I can remember.
That's it. Well, so where did it all start? That love of film, where did it all start for Jake West?
Well, it started when I was a very young child, really. And I always love horror movies. It was really, I think, the double bills on BBC Two. It was like the Universal films, and often they then did double bills with Universal and Hammer movies. And that really got me into horror. And it was kind of, when I was 5 or 6 years old, I was, if there was like my parents were film lovers, so they didn't mind me watching stuff. But particularly when the Hammer stuff, maybe I was a bit young for some of that, but the Universal stuff was, Bela Lugosi, it was, and Frankenstein and all that stuff. So I was fascinated by it. I love the idea of these horror films, and I particularly love the vampire stuff. And at Halloween, I'd always dress up as a vampire. So there's pictures of me when I'm a kid, all vampired up, and so stuff like that. And mum and dad, like I say, they're film fans, and I got taken to the cinema a lot. Back in the 70s, when I was going to the cinema, they still even had Saturday Cinema Club, where we would go to, and you would see kind of weird little films by the Children's Film Foundation and strange kind of serials like, Flash Gordon episodes and also those bizarre kind of public information films and some of those really kind of scary ones. So
the one with Donald Pleasant-Stack and Lonely Water, man, that still freaks me out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I mean, I was going to stuff like that when I was like 5, 6, 7 years old, and so my mum would take me, and you've got to remember there was only a couple of channels on TV at that point, and we only had a black and white TV set. So going to the cinema was a big thing. I got to have all the sort of seminal experiences. Then being I saw Star Wars when I was 7 or 8 years old, because I think it was released just after Christmas in the UK. So I think I saw it at the beginning of 1978. So I saw that at the cinema. Obviously, then going through that whole period, we had all of those great movies like, from Indiana Jones, Ghostbusters, Gremlins, Lost Boys, Near Dark, and then we had video, and with video we had the whole video narcissist thing, and I was exactly the right age to get into that. So basically I kind of was born at the right time for the kind of culture of growing up in the cinema and then having the video, like VHS, particularly that whole video shop generation thing. So I felt very, very lucky. So but from a very early age I was into cinema, and particularly vampire films, which were kind of my first love, really.
Very similar to me, the double bills, bang into vampires. There's photos of me dressed up as a vampire, as Dracula, for Halloween. I'll have to send you them so you can have a laugh. And
Brilliant.
yeah, I was into them, the Universal and Hammer double bills, the Amicus stuff that turn up.
Yeah.
Just absolutely fantastic. My dad was a big horror fan. So he, and we got a VHS player. Went to school, normal day, didn't have a VHS player, came home, and I've told this story before. My dad's just putting Dawn of the Dead on.
That's a good start, isn't it?
And he went, sit down, son. You're gonna like this. So he sat us down.
Now that's good parenting.
It is. I had no censorship at home except for porn.
Yeah, but I mean, porn wasn't really something you would kind of. I mean, I don't know if you remember in the video shop there was obviously there was the top shelf stuff, which was the sort of the kind of more adulty horror things. But
yeah,
but then there would be the kind of porn section, which was often in a little room of its own with a little
at the back.
There's little strips that you'd have to go, and you kind of weren't really allowed into there, but you sort of try and sneak in and just have a look at it.
Sneak in, that's it. And I can remember them showing kind of soft porn on the cinemas in you'd get I can remember we sneaked into one at the studios and it was just full of dirty old men in basically that dirty old men in Max was was an absolute thing.
Well, this was before video really took over that market, but obviously video replaced a lot of those kind of flea pit kind of porn cinemas. I mean, I always remember being fascinated that my dad would bring copies of the Evening Standard home, and I don't know, and I'd used to look at all the film adverts in the paper because I was always like fascinated to see what was opening in the West End. But you always had all of the like the Triple X and the other listings in there as well. And there was there was a cinema that was they were always showing Russ Meyer films, and there would be like posters for Up and Vixen and things like that. And I was always so fascinated by that. And that's before I knew who Russ Meyer was. But I saw that these films were continuously playing, and it was only later that I got a chance to see that material.
I've got to thank Jonathan Ross for introducing me.
Oh yeah, well the Incredibly Strange Film Show was actually an eye-opener for a lot of people of our generation. Certainly, particularly also with the Hong Kong cinema when he did the stuff with Jackie Chan and like Choi Hark and all of those things. It felt like he was continuously discovering stuff at that time. But
I'd go to school and like say to my mates, "Did you see this?" And none of them were allowed to watch anything like that. And I'm like, I'm the only one. It was like a secret.
Well, I don't know if you remember. I mean, we would go to school and it would be like people weren't allowed to watch the young ones.
Yeah. Oh, I was.
They were the kids who had seen it, and then there were kids who heard about it.
I used to watch the young ones
hilarious
on
thing,
a black and white portable TV in my bedroom. My dad would allow us to watch the young ones.
Wow, that's great. I mean, I loved all that. I don't know if a bit earlier than that. I mean, I think it was like 78, maybe again, or 70. When Fred's came on the TV. I mean, that fucking destroyed us. It's like
84 for Fred's.
Yeah, 80. I mean,
we got screened at school.
Yeah, I mean,
it was educational.
Yeah, well, we always used to have conversations in the playground about, so what would you do if in the 3-4 minute warning? What would you do in your last 3 or 4 minutes? And it would be kind of like that absurd conversation you'd have at that age. But we very much grew up in that shadow of thinking, thermonuclear war was kind of likely to happen, which I'm glad it hasn't, but it feels like it still might.
I was going to say at the moment it's looking a bit dicey.
Touch and go again, so maybe that conversation will come back. Maybe you've got less than 3 minutes now with missiles are better. Maybe you only got 2.
Oh man, I've just got that Mark Owen song going through my head. 4-minute warning now. Which absolutely fun. So where did making films start for you then?
Okay, well, obviously, I was fascinated by cinema, but I didn't really know how to make a movie. I mean, there wasn't much information about actual filmmaking at that point. Obviously, the only cameras which were really available in the 70s were Super 8 cameras, and my uncle had a Super 8 camera. My dad didn't, but I did start getting into stills photography. So I very much started I'm obviously not making movies, but learning about kind of optics and lenses and stuff by doing 30 with a 35mm stills camera. So that was something that fascinated me. But it wasn't until I was a teenager that camcorders were starting to be released. This is in fact the mid-80s, probably around 85. You started seeing camcorders in shops like like electronic stores like Dixon's and and I'd be fascinated because and you'd see them in the movies. I think I remember seeing Marty McFly had a video movie camera.
That's it.
And I thought, fucking hell, if I had one of those, I could start making movies. So as a teenager, it was like, well, how can I get hold of a video camera? I'd shot a little bit of stuff on Super 8, but Super 8, you put the film in and you've only got like 3 or 4 minutes of fucking film, and it was so expensive to shoot it and then to get it processed, and it would take ages, and then you wouldn't be able to edit it, or it was really fiddly. So I never really got into the Super 8 thing. I shot a bit, but I was never a Super 8 kid. But because a video technology was coming up, so it's about 1986. And I really wanted to get a video camera, and these things were like about 1,500 quid. Like they were expensive, and 1,500 quid then is the equivalent of about £5,000 now, or maybe I didn't. It was a different world. I mean, it was a huge amount. So I had no way of affording one, but I got a part-time job at Kentucky Fried Chicken, which I was living in Tunbridge Wells at this point. So my parents had moved from London and we were in Kent. So I was at Sixth Form College doing like A levels in art, photography, English language, and and then there was a film studies course that started up. So I started doing that. But so I was basically taking a lot of photos, doing a lot of art, writing, and working part-time after college at Kentucky Fried Chicken. But in Tunbridge Wells, it was really well paid. It was £5 an hour, and that was a lot of money then.
That was
But for over a year and a half, I just saved up all the money, and during the holidays, I would work, almost more for sort of 3-4 times a week when I wasn't in college. So I saved up money. It took me a year and a half, and then I had enough money. Then I quit my job and I went and bought a video camera. So by the time I got to about 87, I owned my own video camera, which was a GRS 707 SVHS-C video camera, which I still have. And that's what I shot all of my early stuff on. The problem is that I didn't have editing facilities because editing wasn't something that was readily available. But fortunately, at the college I was at, they started a media studies, a media arts course, a BTEC. And they had a video production component in that. So the college bought some editing equipment. So all of a sudden, I had a camera and I had the facilities to edit. So that's really where I really got started. And that would have been around, 1987 that I was really seriously starting to shoot stuff and make movies with I was making movies with my friends. I mean, I didn't have a lot of formal teaching. We would just make it up as we went.
As a lot of people did when all the greats did exactly the same. They all started mostly with Super 8, and then Spielberg and everybody. It's all good stuff, man. So your first kind of major film comes 1998. Razorblade Smile. Lilith Silver is a contract killer with an unusual past. 150 years ago, she had been mortally wounded in a duel, but was saved from death by being transformed into a vampire. Nowadays, she kills on behalf of Platinum, her boss and lover. And that was the first film of yours I saw as well.
Well, that was my debut feature, and we shot that in 1996. I mean, I'd been to film school after I did my A levels and BTEC. I then went to film school and did a degree. And that's where I really learned how to use 16mm film equipment, which is at the time, if you wanted to make a movie and try and do anything with it, it had to be shot on film. Digital video didn't exist at this point.
No.
So the option was either be like Cliff Twembler and shoot on domestic stuff, or try and do something a bit more ambitious. Because I've been shooting 16mm film at college for 3 years, and my graduation film Club Death, which is actually it's on the new release of the 4K restoration of Razorblade. I also went back and rescanned that as well, so people can see the graduation film that I did in 1992, which was like a half an hour gothic thing set in the afterlife with a time repeat narrative and stuff like that. So which was pretty ambitious for £4,000. And because I'd done that for £4,000, I thought, well, actually, I reckon I could do a feature for, that's half an hour. So if I had like 3 or 4 times the amount of money, I reckon I might be able to do a feature. And that's when I had the idea for Razorblade, and I started writing a vampire script because I always loved vampires, and I was really into that whole scene, and I had knowledge of that, and I thought I could play around with that genre. And in the 90s, that was something really fun that people hadn't done at that point.
And it was excellent. And plus, you got the whole cold-blooded killer in a leather cat suit just before The Matrix came out as well.
Well, yeah. Let me just say, it's not a leather cat suit; it's a rubber cat suit, and that's
Rubber.
the thing. Because rubber clothing was very much only seen in fetish clubs at that time, and I was going out with the costume designer that was my girlfriend at the time, a girl called Dina Costello, and we met at college, and so we had been interested in the whole kind of alternative fashion scene and stuff like that, and we were going to clubs like Torch Garden and the Skin 2 Rubber Ball and the Putsch and these kind of clubs, and we got to meet a lot of those designers, and we were into that whole scene was emerging, and you wouldn't see that rubber stuff outside of a proper club. It was considered outrageous at that time, where you might have seen a bit of rubber in a couple of pop promos, but that was about it. So we really brought that aesthetic into a vampire film, because I was always thinking vampires are always ahead of the curve in terms of the way that they dressed, the way that they looked. So rubber was the new material that no one had really seen, and it was considered outrageous. And we knew all of these people who were doing this designer rubber gear, and it just seemed perfect for a vampire, certainly a vampire like Lilith, who was always interested in staying ahead of the curve. So she really dressed in all this stuff. But yeah, this was a couple of years before The Matrix. It was 4 years before we got ripped off by Underworld, who basically stole our character and our costuming. But yeah, I mean, it's amazing that Razorblade Smile, we got in there before anyone was doing that stuff with that material.
Who knows? I mean, the likes of you mentioned Underworld, you might have been an influence on that.
I'm pretty certain we are.
I think so.
Well, from the perspective of not just the way she looks and dresses, but also the character herself. I mean, Celine is very much just, she's a female vampire assassin who dresses in rubber, and essentially, I look at, there's people who talk about this as part of the Razorblade Smile 4K restoration release.
Yeah.
And there's a load of special features on there. One of them is a 96-minute documentary called Vampires Forever, which looks at the whole vampire scene in the 90s, all of the influences about Razorblade Smile culturally as well, and about the things that it influenced. And there's a lot of people that talk about how it did influence Underworld, definitely, and other things, which is unusual because low-budget stuff is normally copying something bigger budget. But in this instance, it was a low-budget film which got ripped off by a bigger budget movie, which is
which does happen quite a lot as well. I mean, I look at The Substance, which is basically Wasp Woman.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I'd never thought of it like that, but yeah. But I suppose it's just recontextualized in
exactly, bringing it to a modern time. I mean, Eileen Daly looks absolutely stunning in Razorblade.
Oh, thank you. I mean, Eileen was perfect casting for Lilith Silver, because I mean, Eileen in real life, I think you've probably met her, haven't you, Paul?
I haven't met her, but we have been friends.
Okay, well, if for any of your viewers who haven't met her,
because of that film, I've befriended her on Facebook.
All right. Well, if any of you and your listeners and viewers get a chance to meet her at a film festival or a convention, Eileen's fantastic. She's an absolute riot. She also loves the genre. She loves the genre. And she embraces it. And but when we cast her in Razorblade in the 90s, she was the face of Redemption Video, which she co-owned with Nigel Wingrove. So I got to meet her through being friends with Mark Morris, who I now run Nucleus Films with. So all of these things going in a big kind of interesting loop. But yeah, so meeting Eileen, and she was also into the fetish scene, and she was modeling rubber gear at that point. She was in a load of pop promos. Her boyfriend, when she was 15, was Tim Pope, and she's in all of the soft sell non-stop erotic cabaret, about 5 of those videos, and she's in loads of videos. And I did a few pop promos with her before we did Razorblade, so a lot of that stuff is also in this documentary, the Vampires Forever thing. So there's a real storied history of this, and working with Eileen. I mean, Eileen is such a great character, and she's larger than life as a person herself. And she was at that perfect moment where she looked absolutely perfect as well. I mean, as Lilith Silver, she's frozen as that perfect image, and she loved playing that character, and it was so much fun doing that with Eileen. So yeah, I got lucky with that, and the same with Christopher Adamson, who plays Sir Fane Blake, and I'd worked with Chris in my graduation film Club Death, so some years before, and we'd become friends, and obviously he's great. I mean, and people might remember him as Mean Machine in the Angel Gang in Judge Dredd, the Stallone version.
Yeah.
He's in Pirates of the Caribbean. He's in Dirty Weekend. He's got such a great face and presence. So
yeah,
he was also perfect as a vampire character. So I felt really lucky at that point that I had these kind of quite iconic people who were part of this movie.
And yeah, it still stands up. And I've got the Severin 4K. I haven't went through it all. I've watched the film, and it does look absolutely fantastic still. And then obviously April 20th sees its UK release on Nucleus. And I'm double dipping. I always do that with British films. If it's a film I like, I'll double dip.
Oh, well, that's great. Well, I mean, the UK one is going to be the nicer release because we've got the numbered limited edition slipcase, which is alternative artwork, which for the original theatrical campaign. So it's something on the front of that slipcase, which is artwork was never used, but it was created in the 90s. It's lovely. We've got the double-sided posters, we've got the postcards, and all the same extras, and there's even a couple of little more ones in there as well. But so
oh well, I look forward to receiving mine. Is it right that Bill Nighy turned down a role? I read somewhere.
That is kind of amusing because that's definitely a bit of urban legend that appears to have got onto IMDb.
Right, we go.
Bill Nighy was never approached, but the character he plays in Underworld is very similar to Sir Fane Blake.
Very similar. Victor, he played in Underworld.
That's right. Yeah. So I think somebody must have got their wires crossed on that. We did try and get Christopher Lee to play Sir Fane Blake, but we got in touch with his agent and we were just told no, he wasn't interested because sadly, as a lot of people who love Christopher Lee and his interpretation of Dracula, unfortunately, in later life he became embarrassed about his vampire roles and didn't want to associate himself with it, which is a real shame. Because he's so iconic as that. But yeah, we did have a stab at trying to get him for 5 minutes, but we got shot down really quickly. I don't think we could have afforded him anyway, but as soon as we mentioned it was a horror film, he just didn't want anything to do with it. You got to remember in the 90s, in 96, when we were doing this, there had been no vampire films made in Britain since the end of the 70s. The Hammer films had finished their cycle. In fact, the only kind of modern, almost vampire film, I wouldn't really call it a proper vampire film, was I Bought a Vampire Motorcycle, which was about the only. But apart from that, and that's not really a proper vampire movie. So no one had made a proper vampire movie for years. So at the time, it was all Ken Loach movies and Merchant Ivory kind of films and stuff like this. So when I said to people I was doing a horror film, the people in the industry, they weren't fucking interested.
No, when you think about British horror had kind of, you had Dream Demon came out, Revenge of Billy the Kid.
Yeah, well, Revenge of Billy the Kid. I then went on to work with Tim Dennison, who produced Evil Aliens. And
that's right. Well, Billy the Kid. We're going to come to that next. Razor Blade Smiles coming out for 4K from Nucleus. How did Nucleus start?
Well, Nucleus started, once again, going back to the days when I was a young, fresh-faced kid out of film school, and I had my graduation film, Club Death, once again, which is on the set. Nigel Wingrove was potentially interested in doing a kind of gothic horror compilation of short films. So I took Razor Blade Smile in to show them. And then I managed to have a screening of it at the BFI, along with some of the Clive Barker short films, which was really great. And so, Nigel couldn't attend that, but one of the staff from Redemption came down, and she really liked the film. So she reported back to Nigel and said she really liked it and thought it might work for this redemption thing, anthology, which they were going to do, but it didn't happen. But because of that, I went into Redemption and I got to meet Nigel Wingrove, who ran it. Eileen Daly, who also was involved in it was hers and Nigel's company. But working for them was Mark Morris, the legendary Mark Morris,
The
who
legend.
VHS collectors around the world will know as probably one of the great archivists and
Yes.
person who has probably one of the greatest collections ever and is more knowledgeable about pretty much presets and nasties than anybody else I know. So if anyone wants to know anything or is looking for a film, Mark is the guy to ask. But because when I went into Redemption, I instantly got on with Mark. We started talking about movies and video nasties and I was really interested in the way that Redemption was run, about the way that they would license film rights and stuff. And Mark was very much the guy who would find the rights for things. And so I said to him at the time, I said, "Well, look, Mark, if you ever leave Redemption, I never think he would want to because it was such a cool company. I said, if you ever left Redemption and you wanted to do your own thing, I'll be up for starting something with you because." I love cult movies, and I'd love to be involved in that kind of re-releasing some of them.
Yeah.
So we just had that conversation. So some years later, must have been in the early noughties, Redemption was beginning to sort of change and people were going in different directions. Mark decided that he thought that was a good idea. And he got, and we were friends by that point. So we set up Nucleus, and it's now been going for over 20 years, so which is crazy.
Oh, brilliant. And you've released some absolute crackers. Bloodbath in the House of Death being one of them, which I absolutely love that film, and I have since I first saw it on VHS, and I know it gets royally slated.
Well, the thing is if you like Kenny Everett and you like that kind of
exactly.
there's something very charming about it. Because, once again, I'm like me, you would have watched the Kenny Everett TV show when it was on as well. So seeing Cleo Rockus and all those people, and there's got Vincent Price in it as well. It's not the greatest film, but it's a curiosity. And once again, with Nucleus, the reasoning was always that if we were going to release films, we were always going to release the absolute best editions of them, find the best masters and materials, and we would also go away and make loads of extras. So like there's a brilliant extra on the latest Blu-ray of our Blu-ray release of Bloodbath, which is the last interview on camera with Barry Cryer, who was like 80, and he died a few months after that interview. So, but he's so funny, he's so warm, and he's brilliant. And also we released some of the early Kenny Everett, Kenny Everett's joke box and some of the video things which were just released on VHS back. So we always, with Nucleus, it was always about having a maximalist release with as many extras and as complete as it could be.
So moving forward, 2005, evil aliens, a TV crew desperate to boost ratings, arrive on a remote Welsh farming island to investigate an intriguing incident. A local girl and her boyfriend have been abducted by aliens, and she's also impregnated her. And just pure crazy Peter Jackson style entertainment, and absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, thank you. Well, Evil Aliens was great fun, and that was me wanting to do a film which was a love letter to my teenage years and the kind of stuff which I got to see on video at the time when I was a teenager. And we were gifted with all these incredibly beautifully imaginative splatter films and splatstick films. So
it's got a very extra vibe to it as well.
Yeah, Evil Dead, but Evil Dead 2, Extra, Phantasm, Nightmare on Elm Street. Basically, then the Peter Jackson stuff. Obviously, Brain Dead being one of the go-tos, the ultimate kind of splatter film, probably, the aliens of splatter films, if you will. And, but also, like Bad Taste and Meet the Feebles and, all of this stuff, which we were just continuously coming at us. Also stuff like Street Trash and Melt movies and just all of this brilliant stuff with practical
Body Melt
effects.
Was another cracker.
Yeah, and I always love that thing about in sort of sci-fi crossing to horror with stuff like Alien, Alien being a horror film, but with the sci-fi thing. And I was also interested in, like UFOs and alien abductions and stuff like that. Not because I thought that they were real, but I always thought that they were very entertaining. And it was always the photos of spaceships and things. They're always out of focus. They're always shit. The people that get abducted are always the least credible people in the world.
Yeah.
And I just thought it would be an amusing thing, because originally I was going to try and do a zombie film, and I had a script for something called The Dead and the Damned. But that proved to be a bit too expensive and couldn't quite get off the ground. So then I thought, okay, it'd be fun to do something with aliens in it. And then the idea of somebody who gets abducted by an alien and this TV crew turning up. And of course, they don't believe it. They're going to start faking their own evidence, because there were shows like Most Haunted and all these, end of the dial cable shows at the time, which used to fascinate me because they were often hilariously bad. And so it was kind of like trying to riff on all of that stuff and then bring in my love of all those splatter films and Splatstick. And so it was really just going off the hook and going crazy with it. And that's kind of my very gleeful, joyful splatter movie.
And again, you got a beautiful leading lady in Emily Booth.
Yes, well, Emily, obviously, I'd known Emily for some time by that point. In fact, I'd offered her the role of Ariana in Razorblade Smile back in '96, and she was just off the back of Perverella at that point, and which is Alex Shandon's film. But she had just done a film where she had done some nudity, and she didn't want to do that. She was still at college, she was still trying to get her. So at that point, I didn't get to work with her, but she said no to the Ariana character, which was a shame. But I came back to her when we did Evil Aliens, because by that point she was presenting TV shows. And she was known as a TV presenter, and obviously I needed a TV presenter that we would believe as a TV presenter, but also wanted to work with somebody who really loved horror and was really up for all of the splatter and the gore effect stuff. So, Emily's always loved that. So when I told her about this one, she leaped at the chance, and I was very lucky to get her. She was brilliant. But previously to making Evil Aliens, I directed the title sequence for Shock Movie Massacre, which was a show that she was hosting at the time, which is the one with the very phantasm type drone and then gets beam shit into her head and her head explodes. That was done pretty much with the crew of Evil Aliens, and it was done, all of the veins in her head before it goes full scanners thing was all Life Creations, who did all of the makeup effects on Evil Aliens. So that was a really fun little thing. And so I'd worked with Ems, and obviously I knew her, and I'd been interviewed by her for different things over the years. So we've become mates as well. Funnily enough, that also went back to knowing Emily from Redemption, because she used to work up at Redemption Films in the noughties. She got a job up there. So I used to meet up with Mark and Eileen Daly and Emily, and we would go for drinks on like Thursday, Friday nights. And so we had a wild time back in those days. It was a great community.
Was it the first full-length British horror film filmed using a Sony HD camera?
I believe it was, because we shot Evil Aliens was shot in 2003, and this was a nascent technology at that time. And because I had all of these, because it was a sci-fi film and it required to have all these spaceships and like basically flying objects like the drones, which were I couldn't afford to the stuff like that. I couldn't afford to do as models or practically as much as I would have loved to have done. And I'd love to have shot it on film. It just wasn't possible to do it on the budget that we had. So it was a case of the digital technology had come out at that point, but an HD had arrived. And I'd been to the Cannes Film Festival the year before, and Sony was showing the early tests about when people who had shot stuff on HD and then they converted it to film, and it looked really good. I mean, it was still emerging, but it was possible to do it. And also the technology had just caught up. So at home, it meant that I'd bought a G4 Apple Mac at that point, which was the most powerful kind of Mac you could get. Yeah. And that had FireWire on it. But I'd done a lot of research about what was available if I wanted to work on HD. And I had to buy something called a Kona card, which then became Blackmagic. Blackmagic then took over that company. But so I could buy a video card that could slot into my Mac, and I could capture HD footage. But you needed to buy a RAID array at that point, which was an Xserve RAID, which was about 10 grand. And a lot of the money went into just buying that equipment. But what that meant is that we could shoot everything on HD. But the post period was going to be horrendous because it was. I mean, I was doing this at home, and and my friend Leah Williams, who did all of the CG work, all of the spaceships, all of that stuff. I mean, we did about 150 digital shots, and he was doing that on 3D Studio Max, and and he did all the 3D, and I did a lot of the compositing. But that took us a year and a half to do that work. Which was pretty much done in my front room in Camden, and we had a render farm. He had like 5 PCs strapped together as a render farm. But the shot when the spaceship hits the farmhouse, for instance, that was taking 60 hours per frame to render at that point. I mean, this is in 2003. And my landlady came down, like knocked on the door and said, Jake, I need to sort of say I've got a bit of a problem at the moment, but I just had the electricity bill in and it's gone up by about 4,000%. And it's kind of like because we had been running these computers for like about 4 months by this point. And it was kind of like I had to confess and say, look, I'm really sorry, but I'm doing this, because we were just running these computers for nearly like a year and a half. So the electricity bill was obscene, but it was the only way to do it. So that was using that early HD tech, and we were pretty much, as far as I know, probably the first people to shoot anything in the UK. And I think we promoted it because we got the cameras through Barry Bassett VMI at the time. So I think we were in their magazine and stuff like that. So we were really early in on that before anyone else was touching it.
And everything I'm talking about, I've rewatched.
Oh, great.
For the interview, and it still looks great. It's just pure over the top entertainment, which takes you right back to, the 80s and the splatter movement back then in the VHS period, which is a shame you just don't get that as much nowadays.
Well, the thing is, for me, is that I grew up loving all those practical effects, and I wanted to add to the canon of that. I wanted to try and do some stuff which people hadn't done. So for instance, the rotary tiller thing where Candy gets the rotary tiller and she's doing I'd never seen a rotary tiller used as a weapon in a splatter film, so I thought great. I'd never seen a combine harvester used in a splatter film, and so literally when I was designing the deaths, so I was listing all of the implements you might find on a farm that could be used as a weapon. So I had this great list, and it's like, fuck, I've not seen this, I've not seen that. Obviously, we've got stuff like chainsaws and all of the good go-to shotguns and stuff like that. But then we were adding in with some other stuff which we hadn't seen. But I was also very lucky to work with a company called Life Creations, which were the guys who did all of the prosthetics and animatronic stuff on the film. And that was a company set up by a guy called Tristan Versluis and Tim Berry. Now, Tristan has now gone on. He's now Oscar nominated as a makeup designer. And, they had just set up their company when I worked with them in 2003. And they had this place up, the workshop up in High Wycombe that I'd go up to. And it was amazing. And Tim Berry, he now works on all of the Star Wars films. I mean, he does all the animatronics on all of the latest Star Wars movies. So, I mean, he's an animatronics genius, and he did stuff like the alien dog in the film and the little alien baby and all these great things which were puppeted. And, it was really beautiful, doing these rod puppets and kind of servo things and stuff that a lot of people don't get a chance to play with. And I think the problem with CG is that it's easy to want to use it, but it doesn't have the same kind of charm, and it's not really there. Obviously, Evil Aliens is obviously we had to use CG for things that didn't exist, like spaceships and stuff like that. But if it was a gore gag and we could build it, we tried to do that as much as we can. I mean, I did piss around with a few CG things at the time just for fun, like the nod to Evil Dead 2 when you get the two eyeballs which the farmers swallow.
Yes.
But now I should have done that practically, really, but I didn't even think about doing that until we did it on the day, and I thought it'd be fun. So I thought if we can get away with doing this in CG, we'll try it. But that was I just wanted to do a homage to Evil Dead 2.
I mean,
but instead of one eyeball, it had to be two eyeballs. So you've got to kind of up the game. But we've also got some of the greatest pango splatter shots in that film ever. We think the one of Emily where she gets hit after the arrow goes through the alien. We think that's probably the best you can get a pango splatter shot. So stuff like that. A pango is a plumbing tool that you fill with compressed air and fill it with blood. That's what gives you that level of velocity.
It is absolute. I mean, you mentioned the combine harvester bit. The Wurzels, man, as the thing.
Yeah, well, the Wurzels. Yeah, I mean, I had to spend months convincing the producer, the money guy, that we had to get the actual Wurzels track. It's not a sound alike; it's the actual track, and it was actually really expensive on our budget because we didn't have a lot of money. But the reason it's expensive is because in the UK it was a fucking number one. It was a number one hit.
It was a number one hit, man.
So
people forget how big the Wurzels were. TV shows, Grumbleweeds as well.
Yeah. But because it's the authentic one, and it is. I mean, I think that even people who don't like the film, like that scene.
Yes.
So there's people who are like, oh, fucking stupid, and say, but even the kind of naysayers have a little smile with that moment. I think so. I love that kind of thing. But that was me just purely being. This is my teenage self, just being as silly as I can, and just wanting to have as much fun as possible. And I think Evil Aliens is that film. If you want something which is funny and you just like that kind of humor, then it'll work for you. But if you're kind of outraged, or you don't like bodily fluids being flung around, it probably won't be
I picked it up when it came out on DVD, sat and watched it with my dad, and the pair of us sat there pissing ourselves laughing.
Oh, that's brilliant. But that's exactly what we did. And when we took it around the world to lots of festivals, people loved it. I mean, we took it to San Francisco Indie Hole in the Head Festival, where it premiered, world premiere in San Francisco. And they loved it so much, they screened it 3 times. It was only supposed to screen once. And because of that, it then got selected for Toronto Midnight Madness, which is fucking huge. There's only like 6 films which get picked for that slot. And this little film from the UK got picked, and that played at the Ryerson Theatre in Toronto. And when we arrived at the cinema, there's queues literally around the block. It's like, I was like, what are all these people queuing for? They said, those are the people going to your film. It was like 2,000 people went into this. It was just insane. I mean,
it was superb.
Yeah, and seeing your film with an audience of 2,000 people all gleefully like enjoying the splatter was.
It's got to be absolutely brilliant for you.
Yeah, so for me, that was the kind of experience that I'm sure that people like Sam Raimi and Peter Jackson had when they did their splatter films. And of course, I'm not claiming it's as good as theirs, but I think that you could watch it in the same viewing block. And I think,
definitely.
like I say, I'd like people to consider it as in from that kind of same spirit,
Definitely a homage to the splatter films of that era. So a year later, 2006, Pumpkinhead, Ashes to Ashes. Residents of a small backwoods community summon the murderous demon of vengeance himself for revenge against a local mortician who wronged their deceased loved ones, while the town physician seeks to kill those involved in its summoning. The third in the franchise, and again, I've seen this on the Sci-Fi Channel, which it was made for. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Oh, great! I'm glad you enjoyed it, because this was a curious one for me, because in a sense it's the kind of least Jake West film I've done, because I had the more interference with this because it was done for Sci-Fi Channel, and there's like a rule book about what you had to do, what you could do, what you couldn't do, stuff like this. But ironically, I got that film because they saw Evil Aliens at the Toronto Midnight Madness screening, and they really liked it. They were like, "Oh, would you be interested in doing something for Sci-Fi Channel?" But, and I say, "Well, it depends what it is." And then sometime later, this opportunity, they wanted to resurrect the Pumpkinhead thing. I mean, obviously Pumpkinhead 2, Bloodwings, hadn't really done that well, as far as I know, and the rights were held by a company called Motion Picture Corporation of America, Brad Cavoy, and they're an outfit in the States. So by a series of lucky coincidences, one, that Sci-Fi Channel were willing to work with me as a director because they liked Evil Aliens, but also at that time I was doing work for Mo Claridge, who ran Anchor Bay, Anchor Bay in the UK. Me and Mark were doing a lot of stuff, like we did all the extras for Phantasm and stuff like that. But he knew
the big ball.
Yeah, he knew Brad Cavoy was looking for somebody, and because there was some kind of tax break thing where if you did the post-production in the UK and you filmed in Romania, and we were still part of the EU then, so I could work in Romania. It meant, and I was on their list of like a viable director, so I got offered Pumpkinhead. They actually wanted me to do Pumpkinhead 3 and 4, and they asked me to write scripts for them, which I did with a friend called Mike Donaldson, and we wrote 2 scripts. But both of those were rejected on the grounds of being too ambitious. We were told they were too ambitious and they were too difficult to do. And I'd come off the back of Evil Aliens, and I thought anything was possible. And I was trying to sell them that if we do this on HD, if we shoot it like this, and I know the right people who could do these kind of mad effects. But they, unfortunately, they kind of backed away from that, and they then got a writer that they wanted to do this 7-act structure that they have to do for Sci-Fi Channel, because they build their film around ad breaks, which is something I didn't really realize.
Yes.
But so the thing with that is that I then decided that I didn't want to do 2 Pumpkinhead films, because if I couldn't do my own scripts, I would only do one of them, and then Mike Hurst got Pumpkinhead 4 because of that, which is fine for me because I didn't. I was beginning to think that this is going to be a bit more of a compromise because I'm not going to be allowed to do exactly what I want. But it was the first time I've been paid properly to make a movie, and I was being hired as a professional. And there was like a completion guarantee against the film, and you have to go for a medical. And I got to work with Lars Henriksen and Doug Bradley and shoot in Romania. We shot it all out in Romania at Castel Film Studios. So there was a lot of upside. So I certainly know. And another really amusing thing, it was for a TV premiere, and then Sony did the DVD. So it was for Sci-Fi for TV, and then Sony did the DVD release.
I've got the DVD release somewhere as well.
Yeah, and but ironically, because of that, it was shot for TV. But the Sci-Fi Channel, their acquisition format, they insisted that you had to shoot on 35mm film. So it's the only film I got to shoot a film on 35mm, which is Pumpkinhead. But ironically, it was shot on 35mm, so it's
for TV.
Shown on TV. It wasn't shown. That's the film. That's the film I made, which wasn't released in cinemas, but it was made for TV and video. But that's the film I got to shoot on 35. So it's a strange little sort of contradiction. But it's kind of interesting because Razorblade Smile shot on standard 16. Evil Alien shot on HD, and then Pumpkinhead for TV shot on 35mm film. So this is the kind of craziness that you go. But there was so much cool stuff that happened on that. Like Fangoria came to set, and we got loads of interviews, and it was fun working with an animatronic creature, something of that scale. Obviously, I think that the Stan Winston film, the original one's great, and I wanted to take the Pumpkinhead legend a lot further, but they didn't want to do that. So in the end, it was a bit more compromised. But I tried to stay true. Pumpkinhead 3 is designed as a direct sequel to Pumpkinhead 1, and
because Ed Harley's back.
Yeah, Ed Harley's back, but once again, I mean, even that was a bit silly because obviously, clearly, Lars Henriksen has aged, and Ed Harley is clearly, and he's a ghost. He's not real. So but it was one of those things where they said they had to have him back because they wanted his name on the film. Getting to work with someone like Lars Henriksen's amazing. But having said that, he only did this film. He called it an alimony film. He was only doing it to get money to pay off his so it wasn't a film he was passionate about, and which was a shame when being a fan of his from Aliens and Near Dark and stuff. And he was really just doing this one for the money, which was a shame. But it was great to work with him because he's such an experienced actor with loads of screen presence. And also Doug Bradley, another hero, getting to work with Pinhead himself. So that was pretty special. So I got a lot out of it, and there's some fun Easter eggs in there. If you look in the scene where
I was gonna say there's
there's a whole pile of lament configuration cubes in the doctor's office. So
it is. It's got some nice little bits in it. Creature's great.
Yeah, the physical creature, the animatronic one's great, but unfortunately the CG in it is fucking dog shit. I mean, it's got this.
I was going.
And the Sci-Fi Channel wanted to put this CG stuff in there, and it's like a sort of PlayStation 2 level of CG. So it's embarrassing. I wish that wasn't in there because it actually kind of ruins those bits.
The bit where
but there was nothing I could do.
Window.
No, there's nothing I could do about that. So unfortunately, that had to stay in. I wish there was a version where we could just remove it. But hey, I suppose it kind of takes you back to what they were doing on the Sci-Fi Channel at that time. But CG certainly has got a lot better. That's for sure.
So it was a few years you'd been working on documentaries and extras and stuff like that. Then in 2009, Doghouse. A group of men heading to a remote village to help one of their friends get over his divorce soon discover that all the women have been infected with a virus that makes them man-hating cannibals. And what a cast. And it is a pure kind of boys' own adventure for that time. And it's just great. I can remember showing it to my mates when it came out. I think it was Halloween, and I put it on for all my mates because Danny Dyer was a thing, and he still is a thing. He's got even bigger now.
Well, his resurgence now, isn't he? After being in the wilderness a bit.
And I mean, the cast you got for that
Oh no, it's
was
incredible. I mean,
just,
especially Stephen Graham. I mean, it's insane now. Look
yeah,
at him. I mean, his career is now he's in sort of everything now, is that? But back then, I mean, he was just this great actor who we had known through the Shane Meadows films. What was really fascinating with getting Stephen for the film is that before he did Doghouse, he was working for Michael Mann on Public Enemies, and immediately after Doghouse, he flew out to New York to work with Martin Scorsese to play Al Capone in Boardwalk Empire. And in the middle of that, he played Vince in Doghouse, which is incredible. So he got to work with Michael Mann, Martin Scorsese, and Jake West in the middle of those two.
that's it. It was a Jake West sandwich. Absolutely fantastic. But no, I mean, Danny Dyer, Noel Clarke, Lee Ingleby, Keith Lee Castle,
Yeah.
Terry Stone, Neil Maskell.
Neil Maskell is class. He's so good as well.
Yeah, he's a great
and,
actor.
and Christina Cole, who plays Bruce Candy Coach, she's brilliant as well. No, we were gifted to get a really great cast for that film, and the script was brilliant though because it was by a comic book creator, a guy called Dan Schafer, who did the comic Dogwitch. And if your audience isn't familiar with Dogwitch, they should stop everything and go and buy it. Dogwitch is the kind of like the equivalent of Evil Dead 2 as a comic. I mean, it's amazing. And it's got this brilliant character, Violet Grimm, who's this dog witch, and she does all this dodgy sex magic in the Banewoods, and it's fantastic. But Dan, he was a fan of Razor Blade Smile. And after I'd done Evil Aliens, I'd done an interview for Alternative London magazine, and the journalist on there was a goth girl called Secretia, and we got on really well. And she said, "Oh, have you read these comics? Because my friend Dan Schafer does them." And she gave me some of the Dogwitch comics, and I was like, "Fucking hell, this is amazing! Like, this is like the greatest comic I've ever read," kind of thing. And I love comics. So she put me in touch with Dan, and we became friends because of this, because he liked my films, I liked his comics. And then it led to us going, well, wouldn't it be great to do a film together? Because you're such a good writer. And also he thinks very visually as well, because he's from comic books and graphic novels. So he came up for this idea for Doghouse, because effectively we're talking about, it'd be fun to do a zombie film. And besides, I still hadn't done one. I mean, I'd done vampires, I'd done aliens, I'd done a monster. Now, so it's not my turn to do a zombie film. And what kind of sparked it off is that we were out one day, and his missus Jen, she had a really bad cold, and she was like sneezing, and all snot coming out of her, and we thought, oh look, she's a bit like a zombie, and she got sort of angry with us. So it's that kind of thing about that was kind of the genesis of this idea about what would happen if just one sex got this infected, and then turn them against the other people, because so we just thought that was a really, the battle of the sexes idea was always a fun thing.
Yeah.
So we just thought, well, okay, let's put that into a zombie film. So it could be a military virus where they can turn one half of the population against another, which would be a genius chemical weapon if you think about it. So we managed to get. Also, sorry, and another great, another little great casting piece in there as well is that the character playing Meg Nutt is the actress who played Romana, the original Romana.
Mary Tam. It was her last
Mary Tam
as well.
So I got to meet Mary Tam as well, who was absolutely beautiful. Unfortunately, she passed away from cancer a few years later, but it was great to work with her. I mean, she was just incredible. You playing this character as well. So Emily Booth, I got to work with again. She comes in as the snipper, the hairdresser.
That's right.
I mean, we did some amazing prosthetic makeup and designs on this. Each of the different female zombie characters in there represented a different male anxiety. So the idea was the bride represented the fear of marriage, and the snipper represented castration anxiety. The witch represented the kind of going back to the kind of pagan mother earth man. So we wanted to pepper in all these in a very comic book way, because Dan came from that world, and really have fun taking the piss out of the fact that men have trouble dealing with their relationships normally, but add into that a virus where they can't even handle their normal relationships, and now they've got to try and survive, and they're actually being attacked. So we just thought that was a really fun premise, and it kind of has a really great kind of metaphor to it. And some people, I think, mistakenly only see it as a lads film, and it's not. It was actually us laughing at the men's inability to deal with their kind of maturity. So there was a lot of things in it which I think that it got a bit written off at the time, because I think lesbian vampire killers had come before it. and that kind of gave us a bit of a bad rap. And a lot of people, I think people should look at Doghouse again, but because it's a really funny, great fun film. But
again, as I say,
it also does have a bit more to it than some people realise as well.
We done a Danny Dyer podcast all about Danny Dyer films when we first restarted back in 2021, early 2022, it'll have been. And Doghouse was one of the films, one of the lads picked.
Yeah, how did people love it still then?
Oh yeah, we were just, you know what I mean, it's great fun. And you know, it's a film I've got to say I've watched it at least once a year since it's been released, because I just enjoy it. It's great fun.
Oh no, but once again, it's designed to be, it's designed to be entertaining, and it's designed to be funny. And,
exactly.
Yeah, and I think with the performances and stuff, it's one of those things which I think may have aged better than people expect if they look at it again, because it's got a bit, like I say, there is a bit more beneath the surface as well. But at the end, but it was also is this really funny film and with great performances, and it's got all the gleeful gore stuff that I wanted to do in there as well.
It is very, very gory, and you know what I mean, just superb. Then we've got to go to documentary you done next. Video nasties, moral panic, censorship, and videotape. One of my favorite documentaries ever, because I'm a big Nasties fan, and as a few folk know, I do have all the Nasties on tape. Only 2 bootlegs in my entire collection,
that's good.
And that's Devil Hunter. I refuse to pay the money that it's going for.
I don't blame you. You needed to get one back of 20, 30 years ago, and you've been all right.
Yeah, and obviously Beast in Heat. You'll never know if you've got an original or not.
Well, I mean, it's one of those titles, isn't it? You know.
Yeah.
But that's pretty impressive. I mean, the only person I know who's definitely got a full set of legit tapes, or as legit as they can be, is David Gregory, because in his office in LA, he's got his old video board. He's got all the 72 there.
Well, Gavin Miller helped me.
Oh, Gavin, yeah, well, Gavin's great.
As we all know, Gav's a great guy. And me and him started up the Pre-Cert Facebook group.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Which is a great group, and obviously
it is. It has been scud. I mean, Beast in Heat went for $4.5 grand.
Yeah, I mean, which is just, I mean, it's unbelievable, isn't it? I mean, it's also hilarious as well. The fact that somebody will pay for enough going for a VHS tape. I mean, but you know, this is when something becomes desirable, of course.
I have got one of my nasties here because I just upgraded.
Oh, you've got Expose, one of the only British, the British nasty.
The British nasty, and it's a 3-sided.
You haven't got the gatefold there, though, Gav.
It is, yeah.
It is the gatefold. Sorry, it looks like it's in plastic. Is it in a plastic case?
It's in a plastic.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see it. Yeah, because it's lovely, that gatefold. Yeah. It's kind of blending into your background a bit there, but
there we go.
There we go. Yeah. That's it. Lovely. Isn't that great?
There we go. Look at that.
Yeah, lovely piece.
So yeah, that's my the only one I've got at hand. And let's be honest, it's a great film. Carl Howman isn't a big fan of it, I do believe. Right. But he was great at Darkfest, Carl, I must admit.
Right. So no, Carl is great. Yeah, I actually interviewed him as well about House on Straw Hill for Severin.
Right.
And also
I've got that released, and it's
yeah, you know, that was really interesting, him sort of recollecting, because he's not in it much, obviously, but those scenes are very memorable. But it's that whole kind of in the fields and the wind and stuff.
Yes.
It's really kind of like quite mesmerizing. And I also interviewed Vic Armstrong, who plays the other ruffian.
Yes, the other bully. The other.
What's really funny about that film when you look at it now, though, is that when she arrives at the station and like you've got Carl Hyman riding a bike. I mean, you know, it's like they're a little bit old for kids. But
yeah, that's it. They're supposed to be teenagers, but
exactly,
they're like,
which is hilarious.
Like
Vic Armstrong is like a sort of 6'4" bloke, and it's hilarious when you think, oh, they're sort of been cast as the sort of rough kids kind of thing.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it was great that it was screened at the last Darkfest.
Oh yeah, it's great. Yeah,
Carl introduced it, and I met Carl afterwards, and he gave us an autograph for free. Wouldn't take any money for it, and he's going to appear on the podcast as well.
I mean, when I interviewed Carl, I mean, he's still sort of surprised that people are interested in that film, and you got to remember, for him, he did only like 1 or 2 days on it, and at the time, it didn't really mean much to him. So it wasn't like this big
Yeah.
thing. But now he's kind of like surprised, maybe a little bit upset that when he gets people coming up to him, they want to talk about House on Straw Hill expose, which isn't really his favorite film of his body of work, because it was just something he did as a quick job.
Yeah.
But this is the weird thing about a film, which, because it got caught up in the video nasties, and there's a lot of other titles in the video nasties which would have no real afterlife now. And because they're not particularly great movies. I mean, Expose is an interesting film, but there's stuff like Frozen, Scream, and stuff. I mean, you wouldn't choose to watch that on a normal day.
Cannibal Terror.
Cannibal Terror, yeah. I mean, like, it's terrible.
For the Carlisle Cult Cinema Club page, I've rewatched the Nasties a couple of times from start to finish, and reviewed them all on the page.
Oh wow!
And there is a couple that they're a slog to watch.
Oh yeah, but it's only because they're on the list. You have to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the rite of passage, and you
exactly. That's 72.
But on the plus side, the good ones are really good. So
yes.
but at least half of them are a bit ropey.
Possession is a one I can't stand.
Well, Possession is. I mean, it's. There's a lot of beauty in the film, but it's an art film at the end of the day. It's a bit like The Witch Who Came from the Sea. It's not Witch Who Came from the Sea is a hard watch. It's an experimental drama.
I enjoy Witch Who Came in from the Sea more than Possession. Possession for me, there's no likable characters. They're just shouting and with each other all the way through the film. And that's one of the biggest slogs for me is Possession. And that's the one a lot of people enjoy.
Of course, yeah, but I mean, for me, I'm more of an Evil Dead guy.
Exactly, I'm the same. Give me zombie flesh eaters. Give me Cannibal Holocaust.
Yeah, Cannibal Holocaust. Yeah, but I mean, these films have got a bit more. But these are the ones. But they're the ones that punch you in the face, aren't they? Those ones. They're the good ones.
And I mean, if people haven't seen the documentary, get it from Nucleus Films. You get smart cards with it.
Oh yeah, well also I can tell you and your audience. I mean, we are going to be doing a Blu-ray upgrade of the Video Nasties, which will be the Video Nasties 1 and the Video Nasties 2 Draconian Days, and it's going to be collected in one proper edition. Mark Morris has been remastering all of the trailers and the other material, he's gone back through where there was stuff research which he didn't know about. He's actually corrected certain things, and so we're going to have an even more definitive version on Blu-ray finally. And that should be coming towards the end of this year if Mark ever gets it finished, because he's also working on another special thing that I can't mention yet, which is going to go with it. So if Mark, get a move on and we can announce it. But so Video Nasties fans, stay tuned.
Well, I mean, it is an absolute incredible documentary, and its sequel, Draconian Days, which is more about the Section 3, which I've got a few Section 3s. I don't know if I'm going to go full out and collect the whole, because some of them are hard to get.
Oh, no, definitely. But we were fascinated when we were researching the original Video Nasties documentary, is that we kept on, there was always this confusion about all these other films that people thought were Video Nasties but weren't. Then we finally unearthed this Section 3 list, which explained why, and Section 3 films, which were films which had been seized, but they had never been prosecuted. And so they were regarded as a lower level. But some of the films on the Section 3 are much worse than some of the ones on the original. So because there's no consistency with who was complaining about what. But so the Draconian Days one, and that picks up the story after the Video Recordings Act. So the first one goes from the birth of video up to 1985, and then the second one, Draconian Days, goes from 1995 up into the 90s and the Alton Amendment, all of that stuff. So it was too big. It was too big a story for one documentary. That's why in the end we did it as like two. But also that second documentary, because we were doing the Section 3 stuff, it was really interesting to bring that stuff together. So I mean, these kind of documentaries take 3 or 4 years to get right. So they're a lot of work. I mean, we are toying with looking at a potential third part, which we will depends, but that may be something for the future as well.
And what would that be covering then? The third part?
Well, I don't really want to say because.
All right, fair dues. But you've heard it here first.
Because it takes us so long to do it. Some other fucker may go off and do it if I tell you.
So you've heard it here first. There might be a third part of the Video Nasties documentaries coming. And there is a massive box set coming, hopefully by the end of the year.
Oh yeah,
Um,
which is Nucleus Films. Absolutely, you'll know all about it. I mean, as soon as we can
I'll be
announce it. I mean,
sharing the shit out of it.
I've been trying to get Mark to finish what he's got to finish for ages now, but it is coming, and Mark Morris is going to make sure it's going to be
Excellent.
like
Well,
this
I'm
will
looking
be the
forward.
definitive version.
I can't wait. I can't wait. And what's your favorite video, Nasty, before we move on?
Well, for me, I mean, it would have to be Evil Dead, not because it's particularly scary as a video nasty, but just because it was the film that influenced me most.
Mm.
And being a teenager, I mean, I remember my sister got it from the video shop. It was because it had been banned at that point, but they still had the ones under the counter. I was a bit too young. I mean, this was like, I don't know, what, 1982 or something like that.
83.
83 possibly, yeah. So I was only like about 12 at this point, but my sister was a bit older, so she managed to get it from the video shop, and so she brought it back, and it's like, oh my God, we got Evil Dead which we can watch. So, you know, for me that was just a film that I really fell in love with because I wanted to make movies, and it was so inspiring to know that Sam Raimi had made that. He was a teenager. He was like 18 years old when he made it. So, and then hearing about the stories of Within the Woods and how they got the money, and once again, because of Jonathan Ross and the Incredibly Strange Film Show, that was something that inspired me. The fact it was a video nasty as well was great because it felt forbidden, and we all love that feeling about watching something which you weren't supposed to watch.
I got to see it before it was banned. My dad, being my dad, had befriended every bloke who had a video shop in Carlisle, so he could get, you know, all these tapes. And before The Evil Dead had been released on VHS, his mate who had a video shop had it. We went up, watched it while he was pirating it. So we got a first generation pirated copy.
That would have been a sweet
unused tape. So the copy was absolutely mint.
Yeah.
And that's what I spent a bit of my years until I got an original.
I've got
in the original 80s.
Yeah, I've got the original Palace, the one in the white box one. I mean that I bought that for about 40 quid back in like the 90s. I mean, that's one of the nasties that I still have. I mean, I never had a full collection because I was trying to make movies and I just couldn't. I didn't have I mean, I used to go to film fairs and stuff like that, but because I knew Mark Morris, I could sort of watch everything anyway. But obviously, I've got over the years. I mean, I probably didn't finish seeing the video nasties, the final ones that you had to mop up. I mean, I didn't even bother seeing stuff like Frozen Scream and stuff until we did the documentary because it was like, I don't really want to, you know, it looks fucking shit. So, but all of the good stuff. I mean, I remember being a little bit freaked out when I got like a third or fourth generation copy of Last House on the Left when I was about 14, and I got it in the post. You know, when you'd post them, it would send you 2 on a tape, and I think I got that and a copy of Clockwork Orange, and you know, when you got it through the mail, right? Fuck, I'm going to finally be able to see this, but because it was like about third or fourth generation, it had that really scuzzy, which made it worse. It made it feel like really kind of like real, and you know. And I remember being a bit, you know, I'm not really a fan of rape films particularly because I find them a bit, you know, I just don't. I prefer the more supernatural things and the more imaginative stuff. But Wes Craven is such a good filmmaker. It's like that Last House on the Left that disturbed me way more than a lot of the other ones because it felt very real. You know, and that was something that I thought Wes Craven, he's such a good director. He really made you feel it was happening. And that, you know, and obviously he became, you know, went on to do some of the films I love, you know, like Nightmare on Elm Street and, you know, People Under the Stairs and, you know, Scream and all of this stuff. But he's such a good, intelligent filmmaker. Yeah. And that was the thing about some of those nasties. They were made by really good filmmakers. And that's the stuff which was made by good filmmakers they were good films, even though they were exploitation movies. Yes, that's it.
I mean, because my dad knew all these guys when the Nasties thing was happening and they were all selling the copies of these films before they got caught. We managed to, you know, my dad bought loads. We had about 30 to 40 of the 72 on original tape in the collection. Nice. Then pirate copies of some of the others that we were missing.
And did you manage to get hold of a copy of Snuff? Did you get the blue one or the black one?
I haven't got a blue Snuff. I have got a black Snuff. And there's not many blue Snuffs about. I think there's only two or three, isn't there?
Yeah,
That
well, if
folk
they're
know
legit,
about?
I mean, obviously there's
Well, yeah,
a lot of boots on that. But then again, it might have even been a boot released in the first place because nobody quite understands the history of that.
exactly. Exactly. I know all my tapes, apart from the two boots I've got, are all legit because they came through Gav, most of them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, Gav
Um,
is, I mean, he knows his stuff. I mean, yeah. You know.
exactly. So, in amongst all your film work, as I say, you've done a lot of extra work on DVDs, especially for some of your own stuff that you were releasing.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and just the amount of extras you've worked on for other companies and edited and cinematography and just absolutely amazing. But 2022, Midnight Peep Show, man stumbles across a darkly magical Peep Show booth, and I was hoping to get across to Newcastle when you screened it over
Ah,
there,
you didn't make it. Yeah,
but
that's right.
I couldn't get
Yeah.
across because of situation at the
Oh, well,
time.
I mean, it's a shame because it obviously we got to screen that as part of the festival and we actually won an award on that. We got the best horror
That's
film.
right, you did.
In fact, I've got it.
It
If you
is.
hold on,
Oh, excellent.
I think I've got it. Yeah, here we go. Look at this. Yeah, it's the angel.
Superb.
You look at that.
That's what you want.
Yeah, best horror film. There we go. So, but that was great. Yeah. So it's a shame you couldn't make the screening because
No,
obviously
I was trying to get across, but it was just getting somebody to take us across. That's what.
Oh no,
I
sure,
couldn't get
yeah.
anybody because
Yeah,
obviously I come with a lot of baggage.
yeah, we screened it in a few festivals. It premiered at Fright Fest down in London in the Empire Leicester Square when it was on still at the Empire, and we took it to Brussels and a few other places. So yeah, so that was it was fun. I mean, that was an anthology film, and I did the Black Rabbit segment, which is like a half an hour segment, which is the end, and I think it's the one where the film kind of opens up more and you really understand the world and how it all links together. So.
Excellent as well. It reminded me a little bit of urban gothic.
Yeah, I suppose it could have a bit of a flavour of that. I mean, I loved urban gothic at the time was a nice sort of thing because it sort of delved into sort of things which felt a bit more real. And with Midnight Peep Show, the idea, even though there's the fancy aspect of the Peep Show and the guy being sort of punished, but at the end of the day, this world that he's in felt more like a real world than it was less. There wasn't supernatural. It's a bit more brutal.
Touch of the Serbian movies, if you get where I'm coming from.
Yeah, no, definitely, yeah. And for this one, it was about this idea of the way that the technology. I mean, Black Mirror as well was something.
Yeah.
The way that these things has taken over our lives and the way we get drawn into this kind of virtual world and this idea about if you're on a screen, it almost doesn't feel that it's happening or it's happening to somebody else. So we're becoming very conditioned to look at stuff through screens and being mesmerized by the things that and this idea of somebody getting this female character played brilliantly by Sarah Diamond, she gets more and more drawn into this website and wanting to go to extremes. And there's even I suppose a little bit of the idea of Hellraiser from the idea about taking this thing too far. I mean, I'd like to have taken it further, but we just didn't have the budget to do it. But I think we had some amazing locations in the one that I shot at. We like that big hangar, which at the end, which is like very like a massive womb, and it's kind of like So I enjoyed making that.
Some great splatter in it, thoroughly enjoyable. Anthology. I do love a good anthology as well.
Thank you, man. Yeah, and I mean, the idea with that, my favourite anthology is like the 1946 British film Dead of Night, which is a fantastic one because that's the one where it ties everything together, and apart from the golfing one, but it ties all of those things together like a nightmare. That's what we wanted to do with Midnight Peep Show. We wanted it to feel that there's a bigger story which does have some kind of link at the end. So that was the idea of that one.
And it's so good. And then the following year, you do the documentary Mancunian Man, the legendary life of Cliff Twemlow, the life and obscure career of Cliff Twemlow, an actor, composer, screenwriter, and novelist from Manchester, who was a pioneer in the production of indie-made, low-budget British action and horror films made for the home video market. And we all know GBH
Of course, yeah,
which
well,
is
DBH, anyone who's into the video nasties or who went to video shops
yeah,
in that period in the 80s, we used to see that tape and, Cliff with the axe on the front of
that's it. It stood
it.
out.
Yeah, it stood out. And it was also, but the fact that when you did watch it, it's like this weird film set in like 80s Manchester, which is fucking hilarious as well. For often, I mean, it's once again, it's hilarious that got caught up in the video nasties thing. But that's also what's given Cliff his legendary status. And
Yeah.
that because before I did the documentary about Cliff, I didn't know about all these other films he had done because really a lot of them had never got released or even finished properly. So the thing with Cliff is that he had this body of work, but nobody had really seen any of it. But we all knew GBH, and it was actually David Gregory of Severin Films who initiated this, because he had managed to try and license a lot of the films, and he wanted to put this set together. And he had started doing a bit of filming beforehand with David Flint and his business partner Carl Daft, and they had done a couple of interviews. And he asked me to just edit that stuff together to see what they had, and I put it together, and I started sort of forming this more of a narrative about him. And David saw it and he said, "God, there's actually a much bigger story here, isn't there?" And I said, "Yeah, but it's going to take a long time to fucking do it, because we need to find all this other material and see people if they're alive, if we can find interviews." So David asked me if I would take it on as a director, and I said yes, as long as you're not in a rush. So 3 years later, we then finished Mancunian Man, So that was a big fucking deal. And Mark Morris also was finding all the best materials for this stuff which had been shot on video, just trying to find stuff, and then he was trying to restore it and do some upscaling and just stuff to make it presentable again.
Well,
so,
I'd bought the GBH tape off Gav Miller,
right?
That was sent to you all. Which I don't know if that was the one used, but I'd bought it
I think
it
was. I don't think in the end it was used, because I think Mark sourced another. He had about 4 different sources on it in the end, and there's like 3 versions of GBH on the disc.
Right.
Well. Yeah, and you'll
I've
see
got the box set, but I haven't really cracked into it all.
Well, we unearthed an earlier cut of the film, which is longer, and it's got when it was called the Mancunian, it's got the Mancunian title still on it, which was unearthed from a U-matic tape. So the quality is good, but it's got these alternative scenes and these other bits. So yeah, there's 3 different versions of GBH on the disc, I believe. So Mark is very obsessive, and he went for. But I remember when you said, but I don't think in the end we did use your one. But
no,
I mean, or maybe a bit of it was used for. But Mark was going through comparing different versions and then working his magic. So that was a big fucking time consuming project. But Cliff,
I can imagine.
Cliff is one of those fascinating characters who you don't really get these days so much.
No, I mean.
A guy who's a bouncer, a doorman, he was a singer, he was an actor, he was a writer. He lived like hundreds of lives, and he managed to bring all of these people together to make this little film family who made these crazy movies, and he wanted to make Manchester the Hollywood of the North, which is a noble ambition. I don't think he succeeded, but he did leave these weird sort of shot on video films, which if you're into seeing that as a curiosity, it does take you back to a time which doesn't exist. Certainly Manchester at that time, and it's a great time capsule of all of what was happening around that that town as well, because he loved Manchester.
I mean, it's an excellent box set. As I say, I've got the box set. I need to crack into it and watch more. I've watched GBH off it. Moonstalker I actually found on Amazon quite a few years ago.
Yeah, well, Moonstalker, because MGM released it, because that was the one that was shot on film. That was the only one.
That's right.
That's the only one.
I've seen it as The Quietus.
And it was actually the DOP on it. Yeah, the Predator, The Quietus was an alternative title. And that was shot by the DOP David Tattersall, who shot The Green Mile and the Star Wars prequel. So that was one of his first films, which is amazing that he worked with Cliff on this thing, which never ended up getting released properly. And then but then it did. Yeah, MGM had it as part of their catalogue, and so that Predator, the Quietus version of it, did get some release. But that was years and years later, and nobody knew what it was.
No, well, I can remember. I didn't know what it was, but I'd seen about werewolf and things. Thought, I'll watch this. Then obviously you see the names and you're like,
yeah, Cliff
GBH bloke.
Yeah, it's Twemlow. It's fucking Twemlow.
Yeah, it's the Twemlow, man. I mean, I love that he wrote the Crown Court theme.
Yeah,
which I had a 7-inch record of it because of the A side, which was the eye level.
Yeah, which is amazing. But once again, he was always the B-side guy. I mean, there's that funny thing about when he did the James Bond thing. The theme where he was trying to do a James Bond song, and he got sued by Cubby Broccoli, and he finally got ruined at that point. So that's a typical kind of Cliff thing. I mean, his story is this endless boom and bust, and he's a bit like a sort of Del Boy, get rich quick schemes, and he's always trying to we'll be a millionaire by next year, and it never quite worked for him. But that's why he's a very enduring character because of that. Because even though he didn't really ever kind of crack through in a more mainstream way, he got to do all these films and make these kind of strange little kind of say like a film family of people that work with him, and they all having met a lot of them, they all still really love him, and they love that period of their lives. So he brought a lot of joy to people, and I think maybe still is
from the documentary.
Sorry.
You could see that in the documentary.
Oh yeah. I mean, I really sort of got to although obviously he died in 1993, so I never got to meet him. But he's somebody that I feel an affinity for, because you got the feeling he just was he wanted to do what he wanted to do, and he had the balls to go and do it. And I think that's something that is very likable about Cliff. And anyone who's interested in a part of British film history which isn't really known, Cliff was making these films in Manchester in the 80s and early 90s, and that's unique in itself. I mean, this is at a time when there was hardly any production in the UK, and he was making these films. So that is to be applauded, I think.
I think as well, in honour of Cliff, you should make the pike with a practical...
Well, you're not the first person to have said that, funnily enough. But I mean, I would be delighted to if somebody wants to throw some money at me. And also, I want to do it like he did it originally. I want to have a robot pike. I don't want a CG one. I want it to be a robot one.
That's it. Practical all the way.
Because how much fun would it be to do, and I want to get Joan Collins in it as well. But we couldn't even afford her to get to do an interview. She asked for some crazy amount of money, so we couldn't. We did try, but it would be great. I mean, if somebody out there wants to finance the pike, I believe I would be more than happy to make it. But we've got to do it with a robot fish. That's important.
No CGI, practical all the way.
Exactly.
And filmed in Lake Coniston.
Yeah, we'll film it in all the same places. We'll do it. We'll do it right. I even would want us to set it in the 80s, so you'd have the great fashions and stuff, the look there,
the mullets and everything like that. It'd be absolutely brilliant.
But I mean, I'd love to. Who, it's something that we've been thinking. But I mean, who would we cast as Cliff though? I mean, who would you want to play Cliff Twemlow as a fan? What actor would you want?
I mean, somebody like Craig Fairbrass would be, but it's the accent. Yeah, it's the accent. But it'd be ideal in that kind of role.
Yeah, but I think we should I think we should be more ambitious and try and get someone like Tom Hardy to do it.
It'd be brilliant. You never know.
But he's the kind of character that actors would probably like, because he's such a.
There's got to be somebody on Corrie who could fit the role.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I don't really watch it, so I wouldn't know who's the equivalent of Cliff Twemlow.
I don't know, because I've not watched Corrie for years.
Cliff, he would be an extra. He wouldn't be the guy in the main role. He'd be in the background.
That's it. I'm sure there'd be somebody on Corrie who'd have the acting chops with the Manchester accent, who could beef up just to play Cliff's part. Yeah, and it would be absolutely fantastic.
Well, there we go. I mean, look, so you heard it here first, people.
That's it. We want to let's do a GoFundMe to get money for the pike. I think that's what we should do, just for shits and giggles. I think that's the way to go. GoFundMe for Pike, the movie.
Robot fish aren't cheap, though. That's one thing we've learned from that.
Mind you, today's technology might be a bit cheaper.
Oh, no, it should be cheaper, but it's still going to be expensive, because building anything practically, the reason that everyone does it cheap on CG is because it's cheap. The problem is that's because it is cheap and anyone can do it. This is the problem. Look, somebody can go and make the pike using AI now if they want, but I'm not really a fan of AI.
No, I know what you're saying. Neither am I. It's taken over, and you go on Facebook now, and you're not sure if a video is real or it's AI, and it's terrible.
The thing is that you kind of normally certain it's AI because you've never seen that clip before, and it's like, hold on, I don't remember this film from the 1950s or whatever. It's or the same, because it makes it better than it's using things that you're familiar with. But yeah, that's a problem. But yeah, you can't trust the image anymore because AI now it's not good for creativity in the sense that it's almost become too easy. So once again it diminishes the challenge of making something for a lot of people. It just commodifies it, but the world is changing and there's nothing we can do about it,
No,
so
you're right, but I do believe there is a jump back to practical effects
at
the
no,
moment.
I think people love practical effects because they are practical and they're certainly a lot more fun to work with.
I think good or bad CGI can take you out of a film, whereas great practical and even bad practical can keep you in that film.
Well, the thing is because the thing is actually real. It's actually with the actors.
Solid.
It's actually with with the actors it exists. It doesn't feel that they're acting against nothing. And I think that's the problem with a lot of CGI and stuff that we're seeing now is that we know that a lot of what's happening just isn't real. It doesn't exist. So you don't have that human connection with it. Whereas if it's a practical thing, it's actually with the person and the actors and people are reacting and the lighting is always perfect because the thing exists.
Yeah. If you've not seen any of the work of Steve Kostansky, a Canadian guy,
I think done The Void. Name one of his films. I know the name.
He directed The Void.
The Void, yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I went to the London premiere down there at the Pitch House Central because an actor I know, Daniel Favers, he's in it. He's one of the, yeah. It's a great movie. He
directed The Void. Frankie Frico has just done the Deathstalker remake.
Yeah, which I want to see. That's on my list.
It's superb. I was in
the Cannes Film Festival and it's being sold by Raven Banner, the company. So they showed me like an early promo of it. It looked great. Yeah, I really want to see that.
Yeah, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Loved it. Steve's a great guy. I've had him on the show before. I'm interviewing him tomorrow about Deathstalker. And if you get a chance to see Frankie Frico.
Oh, I will do.
Which is another of his films, which is a bit kind of Ghoulies-esque.
Oh, wow.
And it's set in the 80s as well.
Frankie Freecuts.
Frankie Frico. Frico, as in Freako.
Okay, Okay, I've not heard of that one, but I love The Void, so I will definitely check that out. And
I'll send you the trailers.
Deathstalker, I'm definitely going to watch because I like those, kind of sandal like fantasy, swords and shit. Yeah,
and it's very much taking bits from the whole franchise as well.
Yeah.
And I love this new one's great. It's the only thing it's missing is the amount of tits that you got in the Deathstalker films.
Oh, that's a shame. It hasn't got that. I mean,
no, but it's got all the practical gore and effects in it.
Oh no, great! No, like I say, practical is king still. And if you like I say, I do feel that there's a joy when you have that, and it kind of shows on the people who are acting in it as well.
That's right.
Because they're acting with something, and I think that's the difference. And when it's CG, it takes a lot of that out. I mean, I'm a big fan of always working with practical effects because it's just more fun. But unfortunately, a lot of it's budget related now, and people just don't want you to do it, and that's the problem.
That's a shame. So I think we've covered absolutely everything. But before we go, what have you got coming next? Because according to IMDb, Blightmare, or AKA Feral.
Yeah. This is my long gestating werewolf picture, which is a script that I co-wrote with a writer called Spencer Wright, who did a film called Red Mist, also known as Freak Dog. Really good writer. We wanted to do a werewolf film, like a werewolf film, because we love werewolf films, but
yeah.
And the thing is that there's not that really many good werewolf films, and
and
most of them are old. Like it's American Werewolf in London, it's The Howling, and Dog Soldiers, and maybe Ginger Snaps. But on the whole, the problem with most werewolf films is the werewolves aren't very good. So we wanted to have a story which has a really great fun conceit of the werewolf, but because it's a werewolf film, the werewolf needs to be done practically. We need a good transformation sequence. I need a budget for it. So I've been trying over the years to try and get this thing up and running, but I've not managed to get the budget for it yet. It's still active. I mean, I'm still pushing. So I'm hoping one day to get it done. But it's just literally I need like a decent budget. It can't be done on the cheap, because if it is, it just won't work. And cheap werewolf films are always going to have a disappointing werewolf, and I don't want people to be disappointed by the werewolf when we do this. And there's a few little twists which I want to bring into it as well. So I'm really hoping that I'll get to do that one day.
Oh well, fingers crossed on that. So before we go, then let's have another big push for Razorblade Smile out in the UK, April the 20th from Nucleus Films. There's only 1,000 copies available of the special edition with all the posters, art cards, and slipcases and all that kind of thing. So get it from Nucleus Films. It's absolutely fantastic. And Lilith Silver is gorgeous. And it is a brilliant film. So get yourselves it bought. It's out April 20th, Nucleus Films, from our mate Jake.
Oh, thank you. Also, if people order directly from Nucleus Films website and they're quick, the first 100 are going to have a special 4th postcard signed by me, which is only going to be for the first 100 orders. So,
well, I'm hoping
there's still some left, but they're going to be gone fairly soon. So, if people want that 4th card, they need to order from us and get into that first 100. But that is going to be a 4th postcard signed, which will be a nice little addition as well. But if you miss that, the set's great. It's got so much in it. Over 9 hours of extras, and
superb.
It's got UHD, Blu-ray, and it's packed. So if you like Razorblade, this is the one.
Yes, definitely. Out, as I say, April 20th. Get it got. So I think that's us done, Jake. It's been
I think so, mate. Pleasure. I think that's brilliant. Thank you for being so exhaustive and going back down memory lane with me.
No, it's I hope you've enjoyed the chat, and I am thinking of doing a VHS Video Nasties one with David Gregory said he'd come on it. Gav Miller said he'd come on it. I'm hoping if I invite yourself.
Well, yeah, but I'm happy to do it, but the person you should really invite is Mark Morris.
I will be inviting Mark as well.
Because Mark is, look, my knowledge of Video Nasties is like that. Mark's is like off the fucking. Yeah. I mean, like if there's nothing he doesn't know.
Well, I'll be inviting Mark as well. Yeah. And I just thought it'd be, it's 41 years now.
That would be fun. That would be a great crowd of people to talk to. I mean, they certainly got the right people.
Exactly. So I'm going to get that sorted out for this year. So that's us. If you stick around after we do the sign out, I'll have a quick chat with you. So thank you for being here. And it's a goodbye from me.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you very much. And thanks to all of your viewers and listeners. And I hope they enjoy it. I hope they get something from this.
Definitely. Thank you for being here. So that's us. Goodbye from the Carlisle Cult Cinema Club presents and the brilliant Jake West.
Cheers. Goodbye, guys. Thank you.